Every Vow You Break is the latest thriller by author Peter Swanson. I really enjoy this author. I think it's universally known that The Kind Worth Killing is a solid book. One of my favorites of last year that I read. However, his debut, The Girl with the Clock for a Heart, is not that good. But I cut that book a little bit of slack because it's a debut, and I always go easy on an author's debut. Anyways, this novel is his latest, and it's not very good. The concept is simple. A young woman is on her honeymoon with her new rich hubby. They're going to this island, to this sort of bougie resort where they don't have any Wi-Fi or phones or anything. Get in touch with nature, go for walks, swimming, all that stuff, kayaking. And then, however, before she was to go on her honeymoon, she gets an email from a person she had sex with on her bachelorette party 3 weeks before the wedding. So she gave this guy a fake name. However, he's found her, he's kind of stalking her, and now he's on the island with them, and that is the sort of hook of the book. So I was, excited because I enjoyed The Kind Worth Killing. This book is really bad. It took me about a week to finish, and I'm a fast reader. I usually do about 100 pages a day. So this book's only 300 pages, but I thought I was slumping. It wasn't that I was slumping, it's because the book is just really badly paced. First off, it starts off, the first 100 pages are pretty much jumping back and forth between her time with the man and her present day. You get a little bit of background of her, but the dialogue's really awful for the first 100 pages because when she's talking with this guy, she's like half drunk, she's, alone at the bachelorette party with this guy, and she starts going into her sexual history in full detail. And it didn't feel like it rang true at all, because people don't usually, the way she said it, it's like she pulled out a list from her phone and said, oh yes, I slept with this guy in college, I slept with this guy in high school. It felt really weird for one thing. And that was just an awkward beginning. Also, the protagonist and all of the characters are kind of unlikable. She's cheating on her husband within the first 50 pages, and she decides not to tell him, obviously, but she had some doubts on the wedding. But, there's some really shallow aspects to her character. But the author did a really bad job with keeping his facts straight. They mention something very specific at the beginning of the book, and she does the exact opposite at the end of the book, and it just doesn't make sense. There's about 3 large implausibilities in the story, and one of them is so bad that it splinters off into a whole bunch of little ones. So by the end of the, I think it was Alfred Hitchcock that said, if you're watching a movie and later that night when you're getting a midnight snack, you realize there was a plot hole, the movie was a success because you didn't notice there was a plot hole till way after. As soon as I put this book down, though, just so many questions formed in my head because so many things just didn't make sense. And yeah, so I mean, just on a basic sort of making sense story, I didn't like that. Overall, it wasn't even easy to read either. It had really bad pacing because the first 100 pages is basically the setup. The second 100 pages is kind of just their adventure on this island, and then the last 100 pages is sort of like the big reveal. And it's not a very good reveal. It doesn't make sense. The epilogue just makes it more and more confusing, like the last 50 pages where they do the whole, just telling you where everything's going. Stuff just doesn't make sense. And I really had, I was really disappointed because but I didn't know that this book is considered really bad, though, because I didn't check Goodreads. I just wanted to go into it blind. But yeah, it's got a pretty low score on Goodreads. It's only got a 3.5, so that's kind of telling. I think people are saying that this is definitely one of his more underwhelming novels, mainly because it just feels kind of half-assed. He doesn't get his facts straight because there are certain parts of the book that don't make sense, and there are literally parts where he writes something about her and then does the opposite later in the book. So he needed to at least do a couple of rewrites because there's just so many things that didn't make sense. And I obviously don't want to get into spoilers, but we'll see. And maybe I'll do a spoiler review in the future, but probably not. So Every Vow You Break is, a really underwhelming novel. It seems a bit maybe rushed, and not in terms of pace, but just him doing it. It's not like this is a sequel and people are waiting for it. He should have spent more time just on the basic coherence. because there's a lot of inconsistencies and implausibilities, and just some of the stuff just absolutely preposterous, and even the most basic person will not enjoy this book. So I give Every Value Break a 1 out of 5.